He then did a Bachelor of Theology at the University of Fort Hare in 1974. He then was ordained as a minister in 1974 in the Presbyterian Church. He then did a Bachelor of Theology honors at the University of Fort Hare in 1976. In 1979, he did a Master of Theology at University of Fort Hare, and in 1983, a Master of Arts degree at Princeton University in the USA. 2001, he did his Doctor of Philosophy at the Nelson Mandela University. So in many ways, he actually followed the footsteps of my own father, who is also a pastor, and is also actually a professor of theology, but many similar interests in that sense. His professional career is also quite impressive. I'll tell you just some of the highlights. From 1973 until 1987, he did his PhD, or the docent in theology, at the University of Fort Hare. 1991, the senior docent, the final thesis in theology, at the University of Transkia, Walter Sisulu University. Then from 1994 until 1997, he became a senator in the National Assembly, a member of the National Assembly. From 1997 to 2004, minister president of the Eastern Cape Province. And from 2004 until 2010, he was the sports minister, or the Minister of Sports for South Africa. Politically speaking, he's also had a fascinating timeline. As we look here from 1971 until 1990, he served in the underground structures of the ANC. From 1983 to 1986, he served in the National Executive Committee of the United Democratic Front. He was the finance director of the ANC from 1995 until 1997, and the party leader of the ANC from 1994 until 1997. Since 1990 up until today, he's also been a member of the executive committee of the ANC. So as you can see, the ambassador really has had a fascinating career, really, as you look at the history of South Africa and his own history. He's really been there and done that, at all of the important moments. And in that sense, it's really a very high honor that you decided to come today to give the keynote address. I wanted to give you that background just ahead of time. And what I'd like to now do is call to the stage one of the colleagues of His Excellency, Mr. Lekeo Glenn Mambalu, who will do the moderation for the South African components of today's event. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a very, very warm welcome for Mr. Mambalu. Thank you.
The birth of new ideas, new opportunities, new and innovative ways of getting things done. South Africa, a young nation proud of its growth and prosperity, positive about its boundless potential, a nation with a restless spirit, a defiant resolve, a relentless determination to break through the stereotypes to surprise the world with a fresh approach, smash the obstacles in our path, conquer the forces of doubt. Join us, work with us, build with us, break ground with us, invest with us in South Africa.
Let me welcome Ambassador as well, Minister. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We've just shown a snippet of South Africa, but over and above the snippet, we'll quickly run over a presentation. I'm told that we don't have much time. We only have about 20 minutes, so I'll be very, very, very quick. So these are the contents of the presentation. First facts, the economic overview, the economy, the global perspective, trade partners, investment opportunities, incentives, and a few challenges that we have. And Africa, lastly, will end up with tourism. Tourism being a very, very important issue in GDP growth. Now, these are the provinces of South Africa. 9 of them, as you can see from the slide over there. I know most of you know Gauteng, and we have also the Western Cape. It's very, very, very popular. Now, these are the first facts. Head of State, it's President Jacob Zuma. We have 11 official languages. That could pose some questions, but we'll deal with that at a later stage. Population of almost 50 million people. Now, with the economic overview, you'll see that the financial services take a huge chunk, followed by the manufacturing sector. We do have other for example, we've got government and other services that has about 13%. Of course, would like the private sector also to play a major role in that. Going quickly with the GDP, in 2006, GDP was $261 billion, in billions. But now, in 2011, these are the current stats, we have $422 billion. With our projections for the next coming 4 years, it would be $535 billion. Of course, you look at the imports and exports of goods. There, we still need, with the exports, in 2006, we had about 7%, but currently it's 6%. So going back to the imports, that would be more on the 14% in 2006, and you'll realize that it has now risen to 17%. That is obviously caused by the global financial crisis. Going forth, then with the economy, South Africa is a manufacturing center of excellence with an open economy. We always say it's the gateway to Africa, and it has got a market of more than 200 million people or consumers. So we know that the next big story, of course, is Africa after China and India. Now, with the new growth path, in the next 10 years, we envisage creating over 5 million jobs. That would be to reduce unemployment to 15%. Currently, we have a 23% unemployment rate. Now, this is the new and improved South Africa as compared to the last 17 years. With air transport, we've been able, in the past 2 years, to transport about 12 million people. The gross fixed capital formation of the GDP has risen from 15% to 26%. Now, the last one where we speak about the mobile cellular subscriptions. As you can see, it also has increased drastically from 340,000 to 50 million. One could then ask why, but sometimes you find that people have got more than one cell phone. Some carry about 3-4 cell phones with the current technology. Now, from a global perspective, South Africa plays a very, very important role in the globe. We're a member of the G20. Cape Town, of course, from a touristic point of view, was named the top tourist destination. We are also a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, ending at the end of this year, 2012. Now, our airport, the OR Tambo, is one of the best in Africa. We are rated top 3 most improved airports, and our real GDP growth has quickened from 2.8% in the last 2 years to 4.8% currently. Now, to a potential investor, these are the areas that you would have to look at: the automotive sector, business process outsourcing, just to mention a few, tourism, which I've indicated later that earlier on that it has created about 8% in the GDP. Renewable energy is quite also an important sector. Now, again, for the potential investor, there are, of course, incentives. When you invest in South Africa, you have the Foreign Investors Grant from the IDZ, the Industrial Development Zone, where you have duty-free imports of raw materials when they are brought into South Africa. Of course, we've got some policies, the Section 12I allowance, that you are also eligible for a 900 million rand tax deduction. So the last incentive is the critical infrastructure grant at 30% of the development cost. Now, within the BRICS nation, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, we are ranking the first in terms of giving out credit, in getting credit. So that you will realize now from this slide that even in protecting investors, we are number 10. These are our leading trade partners. Germany is our biggest trade partner in Europe, but now that with China now, with our exports and imports, is placed in first position. Germany is at 2 in the import sector. Now, people have always asked that there's not much intertrade in the African continent, but you could see now that in our South African exports, we are actually exporting to Mozambique and Zimbabwe. With imports also on your right chart, you'll see that Nigeria also features there. So there's some improvement in terms of intertrade relations in Africa. So this just, oh no. Okay, but it's okay. But it's more on the political and economic stability. It just tells us how stable the political and the economic situation is. And it talks about the transport and logistical infrastructure that we have. Of course, we still need skills development, and that is what we're quite working hard at. These are some of the challenges that we have with the high unemployment rate at 23%. Hence, in the next 10 years, we envisage reducing that to 15% with the creation of 5 million jobs. We rely a lot on commodities, meaning raw materials, like primary goods, that's platinum, gold, but would like to do more of manufacturing and value add, which our president has indicated that we need to do a lot of beneficiation in agro-processing and other sectors. South Africa also is part of the region, that's SADC. A free trade agreement was signed in 2008. As I've indicated earlier, that it's a market of 200 million consumers. So last year, we also hosted the SADC COMESA EAC summit, or one would term it as the tripartite summit, which we also have about 700 million consumers. That's more about Africa with 54 countries. Of course, we have now 35 democracies. Remember, in the past 10, 15 years, there were only about 8 democracies as compared to current with 35. There's high returns on investment. Everybody's looking towards Africa, hence we said the next story after China is Africa. So this is a survey that was done by Ernst & Young in 2011. 21%, as you'll see, 29%, as you can see, that people want to invest in Africa. So this is the next big story, of course. So these are the foreign direct investment projects across Africa. We are lying low. So, and you look at Ghana, that has been able to attract more foreign direct investment. But we really are working hard also to attract that much needed foreign direct investment. These are some of the areas where we have trade agreements. I could just cite a few. The SACU, we also have the free trade agreement here in the SADC area. Of course, in West Africa, there's lots of binational commissions with at the bilateral level, of course, in some of the West African states. This is from a touristic point of view, that South Africa, we have been able to attract 15.1% as compared to the whole of the continent at 6.4%. Of course, Europe has been our traditional market, which we want to maintain and retain. So we're actually looking at new markets in Asia. That is what we are working at. North America also, it's our traditional market, which we are retaining. Now, what are our strengths? People are quite hospitable, friendly. We have the infrastructure, the service is good, natural attractions, diverse culture, and so on. This is some of the scenic beauties that we may have seen in the earlier video that was played. And another one, the Table Mountain, which is the site also of the UNESCO. We've got the South African Airways that transport passengers, so there's no worry for you to travel to South Africa. And there is lots of other airlines. There's an introduction of the Emirates, Etihad, Malaysia Airlines, and so on. Now, what is government doing? There are some social responsibility programs and tourism enterprise programs. So government also plays a big role in supporting tourism. So in conclusion, positivity about South Africa as a destination translates into more visitors, spending, economic growth, and jobs in the tourism sector. With those few words, let me quickly give Ambassador Stofile an opportunity to quickly speak to you. Thank you very much.
You see, I was trained to preach in bigger churches than this, so I simply assumed that everybody would catch my voice. But I was just saying that the two presentations were very effective in presenting why South Africa should be seen as a place of choice for investment as well as for tourism. Now, I am not going to repeat any of those things because that was the major part of our presentation. Glenn is our Affairs Secretary in the Economic Political section. So he has just passed his examination in that respect. What I want to talk to, but before I do that, I must apologize for the ICD and Mr. Donfred for making me speak in front of all these foreign flags. They have nothing to do with what we say and with who we are. I think they have to do with the function itself. So don't get confused that we are now speaking for Germany and Austria and other people. And the second thing I wanted to do, because this is the ICT function, I want to add the last part of our presentation, which has not been included in any of the past two, which continues not to be included in the ICD programs, despite the name, cultural diplomacy. I want to zero in on the cultural aspects, why South Africa is a place of choice. The previous speaker here, unfortunately, I don't know who she is. I thought she made a good point about those sociological imperatives of society building and social cohesion, and that is the area I also wanted to allude to. One of the things that we underestimate as citizens of the world is that you are not going to make these economic breakthroughs without getting acquainted with the cultural values of the cultural norms and standards of the people you want to interact with. Once upon a time, I led a delegation to China in 1995 to do a number of political things, as well as a number of economic issues. I quickly realized how wrongly South African entrepreneurs were going about their negotiations to do deals with the Chinese, precisely because they did not understand how business is done in Asia in general and in China in particular. And after that trip, we ran a number of workshops to educate our own business people to be more susceptible to the Chinese counterparts and government in business deals. You see, culture has the unique ability of breaking down prejudices, breaks down the divides that exist over a long period of time amongst the nations and the people of the world. But once you begin to interact at that cultural level, then you become less prejudiced, less I am better than you kind of approach, less than undermining, and begin to be accepting other people, as the Germans say, at the eye level, at the eye-to-eye level of interaction. We underestimate how arts and culture unite people at home and abroad. I always make example of the Iraqi team that won the Asian championships in football, I think 3 years ago, as well as the Ivory Coast team that won the African Cup of Nations a few years ago, when the belligerents forgot about their wars and focused on the unity of their purpose, and they focused on their integratedness as communities and societies. And those who belong to the older generation will also know how that happened here in Poland during the Second World War, when the warring soldiers suspended hostilities on Christmas Day and started playing football together to the anger of their commanders and their generals. And this is what sport, what the arts, what culture does. Walking up these stairs, I was looking at all these photographs, beautiful photographs, very telling photographs. And again, these are the artifacts that begin to tell us that after all is said and done, we are just but human beings. We must have mutual respect for one another. We are diverse, and yet we are one united entity. We are human beings. These are the building blocks that facilitate for those who want to do business and those who want to travel to other countries to make that trip and to make that breakthrough into those negotiations. South Africa has become a place of choice in that respect as well. Our coat of arms It's written in a very ancient language, which is not one of the 11 which Glenn talks about. It is a Khoi language, which translated means unity in diversity. Ike ikadake. It means unity in diversity. Now, South Africa has become very famous for that, going way back to 1992 already. Just before the 94 elections, we became the choice place for a number of international activities, especially cultural and sporting activities. Many people start with the 1995 World Cup, but always go beyond that to the 1992 internationals between South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and England. South Africa became reintegrated before we went to the votes. And of course, it became a very choice place for professionals. Many conferences, whether they are for health workers, whether they are for teachers, whether they are for social workers, just choose Cape Town or Durban to go and hold their conferences. I know next year we will be hosting the World Anti-Doping Conference, the World Anti-Doping Conference. I know because I negotiated that. Just in 2011, we hosted 2 mega events. The one, of course, was the International Olympic Committee Conference, which was held in Durban. And everybody is so excited. They want to come back to South Africa for the Olympic Games. I don't know which ones, maybe 2020, maybe 2024, I don't know. But everybody after Durban is so pleased. They wanted to come back. The COP17 conference of November, December last year has also added another button on our coat. The buttons that were added since the WSSD conference of 2000, the World Sustainable Development Conference, and of course, since the World Cup of 2010 which South Africa hosted. Events that have placed South Africa's ability to host and secure mega events to the world level. For instance, after WSSD, the United Nations adopted our security plan for mega events as the norm for all countries of the world in hosting and securing mega events. The 2010 World Cup was protected in terms of a new law which we passed in 2010 actually, the Safety at Stadia and Places of Entertainment Act, which has also been accredited by FIFA for all the countries of the world. When the incidents happened in Egypt last month, I phoned home to ask them to send them a copy of that act so that other people too may see how to adapt sections of that act for their own situations. In other words, South Africa is not only a place of choice, it is also a resource place for other people of the world. Cultural events include the fashion shows, they include photo exhibitions, they include music festivals, and we are no slouches in any of those. I know that some of you will have gone to Cape Town to the Jazz Festival, which happens every year. It's a world event. Started as a small event, borrowed from the Amsterdam version. It has now surpassed its parent in Amsterdam. It has become an annual world event. That is our country. The tourism rates are going up. We are told that this year, rather 2011, so as grow up by 10%. We want it to continue growing up because of all the things you saw. The adequate infrastructure, the sophisticated institutions for investment, for protection of investors, for transportation of goods. We are not there yet in the sense that our network, infrastructure network within the African continent is very backward. But at the international level, we are second to nobody, whether by plane or by road or by bus or by taxi. we are able to ferry people around to their places of choice. When you have time, go to that place where they are having the tourism ITB thing. What is that place? The ICC here in Berlin. It started 2 days ago. It continues until the end of this week. You will see the South African stalls there. Indeed, you will see the African stalls there, and you will be able to get some of the takeaway documents that should help you go along. I sit down now and say, you cannot succeed by simply saying we have gold in South Africa without putting together a program of an interlinked program. That is the tourist managers will tell you. There is no tourist who wants to go to Port Elizabeth, to sleep in Port Elizabeth and wake up and take a plane back to Thailand. They want also to see other things. And we do have those other things. And in seeing those other things, they also get exposed to business opportunities. And we do have those business opportunities. The best, of course, that we have is the sun in the hearts of our people. Vielen Dank.